So your perimeter, and there's a bunch of technical stuff here, but this is, we just transitioned from an idea, like a theoretical idea, meaning your users have an understanding, you as the company owner or security officer, whatever, has an understanding of what's expected, right? So we did that with policy procedure. Now we're starting to move into the actual IT, equipment, security tools, things like that. This is the first step. For me, this is kind of, your chance to test and see how you fare against the outside world. But I'll let Brendan go through the different tools there, and it'll make more sense.
Yeah. So penetration testing or pen testing is basically applying the same kind of tooling and techniques and tactics as an attacker would, right? So it's basically to use the house analogy, it's casing the house from the road, or going up and seeing, okay, well, is this window actually locked? Does all of the doors have deadbolts? Do they leave the house unlocked? Where are their lights? Where are their cameras? That sort of thing. And so being able to look at that stuff from the outside allows us to identify places where perhaps there's some weak points in the network. Maybe you have a 10-year-old business camera system that was installed at some point a long time ago, and the user, like the ability to log in and actually view the footage is available online, right? You would want to make sure that you close that up, because if you can log into it externally, anybody can. And you wouldn't want that to turn into something that somebody could use to kind of move around the rest of your network.
Yeah. And then firewall checks.
Yeah. So firewall checks, it's checking a couple things, right? So every firewall, business, consumer, or otherwise, comes with firmware on it, which is basically software that tells the hardware how to operate. And probably weekly, there's always some new vulnerability or some new bug in both business routers, home routers, and it's basically checking the firmware to make sure that there's not a newer one available, or getting notified when there's a new one available, and then working with the client to actually schedule those, right? If there's a vulnerability in like the VPN setup for the router that makes it so someone who's not authenticated can log in, that defeats the purpose of having it. So we probably want to install that right away. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is, well, I spent X amount of dollars on this enterprise business grade firewall and I'm good, right? And that's not the case. Threats change, and there's always something new to push out. Also, having somebody checking the configuration of the router to make sure that the policies and firewall rules are set up in a sane way, and having some sort of process to review that on a regular basis and make sure that that stuff's needed or not needed.
So moving on, email is obviously the number one threat vector that we see. Everybody has heard of spam filters, but maybe can talk a little bit more about how important they are.
Yeah, so spam filter can either work in tandem with the spam filter provided by your email provider. So you have Microsoft 365, they have a spam filter. It does an okay job on its own, but having something that works with it or replaces it entirely, that maybe goes a little bit deeper. As far as say you get a link in an email, it'll actually go out and scan that link in a sandbox, see what it does, see where it points to, and verifies if it's a phishing site or not. And then can do that in real time to either prevent the email from coming to the inbox at all, or showing the user some sort of warning before browsing to the site. Obviously it's not there's no silver bullet against never getting spam aside from not having email, which isn't really an option for people. So it's basically reducing the amount of spam that comes into a fraction of what it actually is. I think it's about it's less than 1% of what actually makes it to you spam wise versus actually what is sent to you.
And a lot of folks, so even groups that are starting fresh using something like Microsoft 365 for the mail services, how important is it? You shouldn't rely on the vanilla settings of any mail product when it comes to spam filtering, right? You should definitely
correct. I wouldn't. There's a saying in IT that's the insecurity of the default settings, right? Because the default settings, password's password and the username's admin, and that's not very secure at all. So having somebody who knows what they're looking at and knows kind of what the threat of the day is or the threat of the week, right? And can either the platform updates itself to block those kind of attacks, or somebody can go in and add new functionality, or say there's a type of file attachment that you want to block, and maybe that list is different than it was 6 months ago. You want somebody who's going to go, okay, do we need to add anything to this, and review it.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about the previous layer. There was policies and procedures around internet usage. How important is web filtering for kind of helping users protect users from themselves, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yep. So you can, and Brendan can speak to anything I miss here, but having a good web filter in place, you can block things by category. So maybe if you said in your acceptable use policy, we don't want anyone gambling on work computers, you could simply say block all websites that are gambling. It's a good way to reinforce what you did. Even though if your employees are reading the policy, they're not trying to go to gambling sites, but maybe they clicked an ad by accident and they get to see that big, hey, this website's been blocked. This is, www.onlinegambling.com or whatever. It's a good way almost to connect the two things, right? We've taken that policy and we've implemented it. You still need the policy because no web filter is going to be perfect, and you may want to block things that a web filter can't block, like a certain activity or behavior. But having said that, web filters will do that. They'll also block things that are known malicious. So if some bad actor or threat actor registers a brand new domain today and then starts running ads everywhere, the web filter can go, hey, this domain just got registered today. It's probably not a real site. We're just going to block it by default, and probably more that Brendan could talk to. But that's where there's
you got all of it right there. It's that automation backing the policy part. They're kind of well contained.
So VPN connections. You're going to talk about what a VPN is, but this is very important now in the post-COVID world with so many people working remote, so many more people working remotely than did before.
Yeah. So VPN is a virtual private network, and in its simplest form, it makes your computer think it's on a different network. And the traffic that basically, the internet traffic going between your computer and that VPN is encrypted. So anybody in the middle is not able to, see either, tamper with the data. The best way to look at it is imagine, so like you have a username and password to log into like your internal security cameras. It's just the best example and the most common. It'd be nice to have a bouncer in front of that who's going to go, okay, like, yeah, sure, your username and password's fine, but like, are you logging in from China? Are you logging in from an Amazon server or something like that? Those things probably shouldn't be accessing your camera server. And so making it so there's that extra layer, having a VPN with multi-factor authentication where you have to enter like a one-time password in addition to a username or password is going to make it so you just have one thing exposed to the internet, and that's as secure as it can possibly be, and then everything else gets to sit behind that.